But there's other people that can help you. So I learned how to find other people to help me instead of that guy, which I was told he's like, that's your mentor. And that wasn't my mentor. Other people in the unit were my mentor.
Yeah.
And then I got a really good person right after him, and I saw what right looked like. So, you know, it's everywhere. That feeling never goes away when you move jobs and stuff like that, but you just know how to adapt to it, feeling it more than once.
It's the same, but the Army is like, maybe not immediately, but life and death. You know, like if there's anywhere where it needs to be like a well-oiled machine, it's there, you know?
Yes.
And but I think about too is, you know, when I was coaching professional soccer, I started as a pro coach at 25. Like our captain on the team was 34 and I was a second assistant as a 25-year-old. And you would think that would have been a stretch of time where I like felt like the imposter syndrome, but
right.
You know, our head coach is like at the time he still is, but like extremely well-respected coach in U.S. soccer. And, you know, I trust his judgment 100%. And so then I would always just come back to that. I'm like, well, if he thinks I can be here, then I can be here. Like that's all I ever really had to reason with myself. But still, beyond just that, it's just so delicate with how you, like when you're leading groups of people.
Yeah.
You know, because like you have to uphold a standard, but then it can be hard to do that because, you know, like you have to basically agree on what your standards are, and individuals might not agree with those standards all the time.
Yep.
And so then it's like, do I want this conflict today?
Yep.
But in your mind, you're like, I need to, like, I have to do it to uphold the standard. But it's hard. Like there's like that thickness in between it where it's like, I gotta like sweat right now because I need to like confront this person and be like, hey, why the fuck did you do that? You know, and I mean, that's why there's so many books about like leading groups of people.
Yes.
You know, because it's so different than anything. If you've never done it, there's just so many ways that you can mess it up. Yeah.
And what the Army taught me was, you know, extremely impactful experiences. They helped with imposter syndrome. They help with leadership, right? Because I was put in that spot. So most people probably didn't know that I was put in that exact spot. When they think of the Army, they're like, oh, well, that's great. Like you were totally prepared. I'm like, fuck no. We were not prepared. I was not prepared for leading people without the training. And then even the training after, I learned tactics so well, but I didn't even know admin paperwork. Like I didn't know how to counsel somebody. Like that's crazy to think about. The well-oiled machine of the Army taught me how to be operationally like in the field effective. But that's it.
Yeah.
So I still had to come in and learn how to lead. But the best experience I had was that deployment later. So there are so many things I wish I would have changed about how I treated different things being that young. Like I was too young and ill-prepared to really know. But one thing that was nice about this is to overcome imposter syndrome for me in general was getting put in it over and over again within the Army. Going on deployment was a really good example of that because you're at a job in a dangerous place that you cannot leave and you cannot quit. So you learn how to work with people. Yeah. You don't have an option and you're pinned to a corner and you're pinned to the wall. And it was right at this pivotal time. I was like 24 when we were on deployment where you're learning. Like, I think that's where your brain is like on the tail end of that developmental thing of like how you treat people, how you start building habits internally that you might not even realize. That starts like wrapping up around 25. You start to like, that's when they start solidifying a little bit, you know, for the first time. And that was where I was given like really hard environment to work with, you know? So I came back from that and I think it made me grow and develop a lot because leading by force, no matter who you are, is like you will come out of it the other side. And it takes a repetition to lead. That's what people forget too. You literally have to do reps of it. There's books, there's people that are good at it naturally, but everybody has repetitions of it because that will just ultimately be so much better because there's things that you'll find through the cracks and through people and how you conversate that you would never think about or realize from any book, from anybody else's experience except your own.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all little moments, you know, and like you could be in theory a good leader, but no situation is the same, you know? And so, you know, looking back on it, I personally, when it comes to leadership, like I've always been someone that I prefer to lead by example, because I think talking is bullshit, you know?
Right.
And there's been so many times where, you know, you've got that like players only or locker room speech or pregame speech or whatever. And it's like, we're going to do this. And then none of that shit happens. Or
none of it happens.
You know, I'm going to do, and this also, you know, bleeds into like professional and business stuff as well. But I just can't stand when people say things and don't do them. Like,
Exactly.
And there is a difference between like getting someone riled up and like, we're going to go shit on them, like whatever, because that's ultimately not really in your control. You know, like that's just like, that's not really saying like that's not a declarative sentence. It's just, I don't know what the word would be for that. Like you're just trying to get everyone hyped up, you know, like I get that. But to say that you're going to have a standard or set a standard or uphold a standard and then the action not follow that up, it's like you're better off just like keeping your mouth shut and then taking the action. And then eventually people are going to see that rather than saying, I'm going to do this. And then that alone right there, you're poking holes in your own leadership. Because if you say you're going to do it and then the action doesn't follow up, everyone's going to see that and be like, okay, well, he says that stuff, but he doesn't actually do it. So we're not going to listen to him anymore.
Yes. Oh my God. That is so true. And, you know, like, I think everybody, like, if you've been in a leadership role and you think you haven't made a mistake, you are wrong.
Yeah.
I knew fundamentally when I made mistakes on that deployment, and I say I wish I could take them back, but they were growing pains of learning, like working with a platoon sergeant and having arguments, working with a commander overseas who was not my commander, you know, having a few of my guys get drunk, and then I have to try to either counsel them or have their back, right? It's like you figure out these things from those reps, and you're better off putting your foot in front of it instead of putting your mouth in front of it, you know? And like, I wish I did that more younger, because I think it would have prepared me even more, but I was put in the spot to do so. Like I was put in those positions to do so.
Yeah.
And I think it's weird. People don't really have, you know, these opportunities in the civilian world to necessarily do it in the same way, because it's less structured.
Yeah.
It's such a free for all. Like your boss might not have ever led people, and then they're your boss for the first time.
Yeah.
Or they might have been there from seniority, but they don't care to be there. Like they didn't really want to be in that position.